the offices, everybody was wearing tie and suits, and that was that was the norm,
yeah.
you know. Whereas if you go to France, you're more like an artisan, and you behave like that.
Yeah.
You know, even when in France we went for lunch, there was a bottle of wine on the table. But in terms of architecture.
Hello, Michel.
Hello, Mimi.
Welcome to Design Discussions,
Very good.
where we discuss design. Whenever I meet someone who's very good at what they do, I'm just really interested in what drives them, you know, how did they get here? And so since you are one of the people who I think is really good at what you do,
wow.
Architect extraordinaire, Michel.
Let it be on record.
Yes.
This has to be on record.
Yes. I thought it would be good to just sit down, have a chat, just
nice.
Get to know you, get to know how you came to this point, really. So.
My name is Michel Nadorp. I am 62 years of age.
Wow.
I graduated in Netherlands at the Delft University Faculty of Architecture in 1989.
Wow.
And I've been traveling since that time. In my country, I'm a Dutch citizen still, even as of today. I did not work too many years. I worked sometimes in between, going from one country to another. But I lived and worked in the UK for a few years, in France, Paris for a few years, and I've been in Nigeria on and off, I think for almost, a good 25, 26, 27 years. Yeah, and I've always been working for architectural practices, especially in the UK and in France and Paris. And when I came to Nigeria in 1995, I came here as a site project manager that had to do details on site for a housing estate in Abuja. And that's where I also developed some project management skills. So yes, I'm an architect. There's a lot of experience here, and I've done a lot of project management over the years. Currently I have my own practice with my partner Richard, who's a builder, Richard Olatunji. I'm an architect. Together we run 3ADB. So I started 3ADB in 2009, was that? 2009. So that is the current practice. Before I had another practice called 3A, and this is 3ADB Limited.
What does that mean, 3ADB?
The company that I initially created in Nigeria, this was around 1998, it was called 3A, and 3A was a consultancy outfit for Abuja Architects Associates, 3A, AAA basically. And when I met with Richard in the early 2000 years, my idea was, and I asked Richard, would you like to join to do a design and build entity? Yeah, so it's both consultancy and as well as construction.
Yeah.
And I think that is good. That works well in the Nigerian market.
Yeah.
So,
can you give me an insight into your journey in design and architecture?
Yeah.
Like, would you say that you were a particularly creative child, or is that something that you picked up, you know, later on in life along the way?
as a child, I was always I was a bit of a dreamer. That's number one. I remember my father was an estate agent, and I remember going together with my father to see empty houses, and I was together with my dad. We were just talking, oh, why don't you create a larger space here? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do that?
Okay.
So my mind as a child was already thinking in 3 dimensions. Then I was doing a lot of drawings, not too much, but I was doing drawings. So my brothers, they were watching television, and I was doing drawings, or I was doing gardening together with my mom. She loved gardening, and I always liked joining her. I like nature always. Initially I wanted to do architectural landscaping. That's a kind of, but I think like a month or 2 months before the university for that architectural landscaping started, I made a switch to architecture.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the process of schooling in the Netherlands if you're trying to be an architect? So in Nigeria, basically you have to do a bachelor's, and then you do a master's, and then you do some years of tutelage in an office like this before you get to licensure. So that could typically take anything between, say, the school itself takes you 6, 7, 8 years, depending, all things being equal, which in Nigeria, things are never equal, and then maybe another 2 years before you write your licensure. So between 8 to 10 years from education to becoming licensed. Is that a similar path?
No, it's a bit shorter, the path in the Netherlands, and obviously the route that you're describing of bachelor's and masters is the same now, but whereas when I was studying architecture, that split was not there yet.
Okay.
No, and I think I was one of the last group of students that still had the old-fashioned full load education in architecture.
So what is it called? What was it called?
Well, I'm officially. It is a master's.
Okay.
You go from 0 to master's.
Oh,
so there's not something like a bachelor's. So yeah. So either you drop out halfway or you go to the bitter end. So I did my master's and straight away. And while doing the master's, I was working in 1 or 2 different firms to get the practical experience. When you finish the whole the full scope, which is officially 5.5 years, you can already register yourself as an architect.
Okay. So that takes you how long in total? School and.
As I said, nominal 5.5, but there's hardly anybody that does it in 5.5.
Okay.
Because most people, they stay a bit longer where they work, for instance, or they do this, that, or the other. But say 7 years, 8 years. That is how long it takes most people.
So that's not bad.
Yeah.
So once you were done with university, what happened?
When I was done with university, there was not much work in the Netherlands, and at that time there was a lot of work in the UK, and so I decided to go to the UK.
Okay.
I was planning to go there just for 6 months. That became 3 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Then from UK I moved to France. I stayed there 3 years as well before, and then I came to Nigeria.
And what were those experiences like, being in the UK, being in France?
Well, in terms of working as an architect, those 2 countries are almost each other's opposite.
Really?
Yeah. In the UK, working as an architect, you work more as a kind of an engineer, I would say, as a business person. The offices, everybody was wearing tie and suits, and that was
so serious.
That was the norm,
Yeah.
you know. Whereas if you go to France, you're more like an artisan, and you behave like that.
Yeah.
You know, even when in France we went for lunch, there was a bottle of wine on the table.
Yeah.
But in terms of architecture, I think that the type of architecture we did in France was more up to scale than what we did in the UK. In the UK at that time, you had some good architectural practices, like Norman Foster, Richard Rogers, they were there already.
Okay.
And I think it was more like in the mid 90s that say a lot of new architectural companies came with modern architecture, whereas prior to that, UK was not too modern in their approach. There's more a lot of classical stuff. And once again, just building shopping centers, that's what all these British people were doing. And in France, it is very much different. You go straight away into design, small scale stuff, also large scale stuff. But a lot of it was funded not by private investment like in the UK, but by government. Government is really sponsoring it as well.
So there was like a diversification of projects that you could go from.
Yeah. And I think the environment where I come from in Netherlands is a little bit in between the 2, I would say. Although my university in Delft is a university that is, I would say, famous because of its approach to architecture. There's not many schools like that, I would say, in the whole world, because we are actually part of a technical university.
Okay.
And so we are very much into the technical aspects of construction, but at the same time, being from the Netherlands, where you have it was the Bakermat, it was the origin almost of the modernism school of architecture. What we were taught was really that combination of the 2. So being modern in following the modernism, say the Le Corbusier in the 30s, that was still the number 1 even when I started in 1980 my studies, and that's together with the technical approaches. How do we actually construct it? How do we build it? You know, and I even as of today I'm very happy with that combination, because you do not become like just a paper architect that can only dream, but eventually you have to make it to work. You know? It is nice if you design beautiful cantilevers, but if you don't have no clue and you just walk away, like in France they were building it and they left it completely up to the engineers, and that was not really the right approach.
Yeah.
So I'm proud of having, I'm happy, let me put it like that, that's the better word, that I had that combination of tuition, of the technical aspects as well as the being an architect, being an artist, being understanding art in all its forms. You know. So the school I attended to was very widespread. We went into the arts, we went into the paintings and all that to fully understand, comprehend what architecture means. And obviously, when you talk about modernism, we talked about so much about what architecture is, in my view, really about. It's about proportions. It's about light. It's about rhythm. You know, and my adversity towards say decorations is a little bit based on that as well.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it is that understanding the art and understanding the principles of space and light and that together with how do I make it to work. I think it's a good basis to become an architect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we've talked about you in the Netherlands, you in the UK, and then in France. And so what happens after France?
I met my then wife. We divorced a few years back. Who is a Nigerian lady. I actually met her in the UK, and it was actually because of her origin I came to Nigeria. And like the first trip to UK, that was supposed to be a 6-month trip.
Yeah.
It lasted 3 years. Also, this one was supposed to be a 6-month or a 1-year trip. I can't remember. 6 months. And after more than 25, 26 years after.
They can't get rid of you.
I don't think I will. No. I
You love it too much.
I don't think I can leave.
Really?
No. I feel home here. So.
Modified Nigeria. Right. So what has been your experience in the Nigerian architecture space, like over the 2.5 decades that you've been here?
The experience is that you have to be very much hands-on to create as an architect, to make what you have in mind, to create that physically on ground. You have to be hands-on. You have to understand the building site. I love being on building sites. I always enjoy that. And you have to be on top of things. You have to fully comprehend the materials that you're using. You have to be on top of staff, workers, micromanage the whole process, which is not always ideal, because if you're micromanaging too much, you don't have too much space enough in your head to think about new things. It's a big dilemma. I see it as one of my biggest dilemmas of doing business in Nigeria.
Project management?
No, the fact that you spend so much time in following things up, that doesn't create time yourself to reflect on new things, because you don't want to remain stagnant in what you're doing. You want to develop something new.
I'd say I concentrate on the time you've been in Nigeria. So have you been concentrating on residential or commercial, or do you feel like your work is just like you have breadth of work in every sector? Yeah,
I would say so, because it doesn't really matter as an architect or a manager, project manager, what you're doing. I mean, ultimately, you have to be creative. You're doing something, and whether it is a medical project or a residential or an office or mixed use, it is the approach is more or less the same. It's more or less the same. Of course, there's interesting projects and there are projects that are not interesting. I have to be frank about that one. And obviously, looking at my background, the interesting projects are the projects that you can actually give the design process proper thought. And the best designs are often created if there is plenty of restrictions. And if you have a difficult client that's actually working often for the better. Really? Yeah, that's my experience.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But it should be a difficult, if I say difficult, it should be a client that he should know what he or she wants, and it should not change his or her mind from day to day.
Okay, so
not
difficult for the sake of being difficult.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or playing the organ.
Yeah. But okay, so.
But it is good if a job has restrictions. Yeah. And if I can give an example, I think one of the, I would say, jobs I really enjoyed doing over the last few years is the Ishaku project. A project that had already an existing structure on ground, and multifunctional building had to be created around that existing function that was there, and underground parking was there, and also the client gave me a lot of space to be creative, and he was following the whole process very well, and also being an architect himself, maybe that is one of the reasons. And you can actually develop a project like that up to the finest details. Obviously, there's always challenges. One of the major challenges, I think, in constructing things in Nigeria is the lack of material, the lack of proper material, but also the lack of understanding by, I have to be frank, by your own staff and people on site. And the lack of understanding, I guess, it is ultimately due to lack of the correct experience. Some of them are well experienced, but they may not have always had detailed or correct experience, and maybe also exposure. And that is where I sometimes struggle. Yeah.
I'm very interested in knowing what you consider to be your signature style, or how do you approach design? What's your design ethos? Like, if they wake you up from sleep and they're like, how are you going to approach this project? What is the thing that just is so ingrained in you that it comes out easy?
I think it is thinking in concepts. I think in concepts, and I try to always put hierarchy in a design. What are the real issues? Come up with a concept, and I think it is. I learned that very much at the university. It's actually my teachers that taught me this. Sit back and look at the requirements. I must say I'm fairly fast in coming up with concepts. Whenever there's a new design, a new project, the concepts are usually there within a couple of days. The concept is already there.
And is that something that comes from practice, like having just done it over so many times, or is this a natural ability that comes to you?
Well, I think it is both. It is both. But if I come up with concepts, it needs to be that quiet around me. I cannot have people around me. So usually I do the concepts early in the morning.
Okay.
7 o'clock. I wake up at 6. 7 o'clock I'm in the office. And at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock the concept is there. So no distractions. Just to get your mind fully into the project. And so I think it is something I was taught really at university, and I think it also goes together with the architecture style that I like. As I said, I'm trained to think in, it is the modernism style that was very much part of my university training. And then in working things out, I think there were other, I would say, architects that has really kind of inspired me. There's one architect, he's an old gentleman, he's in his 90s now. He's a Dutchman called Herzberger. It's a German name, but he's a Dutch person. And he always thought about the tiny little details. It is like...
Is he like someone legendary that you know of, or you know?
No, he taught, I do not know him personally, but he taught us at school.
Okay, so
he was there. Yeah. He's an old gentleman now, but he got many awards within the country and outside the country. Because he really, and he has done a lot of, let's say, schools, primary schools. So he was really thinking about the individual, the person. What do you see? How do you approach? If you have a kitchen, how should the kitchen look like? A staircase. Is a staircase just a riser and a going, and a riser and a going upstairs? Or is it more than that? And he was thinking about the dimensions, and he really had a good feel of dimensions. Like in a school, for instance, as an example, you have often big wide stairs because classrooms they all go out at the same time, and people are running stairs from one side. So often stairs are wide, but you can also use a staircase as a kind of a place where students can sit. So if you look at his stairs, part of it was really to go up and down the stairs, but other parts were more like every. So it's one riser, one going, one riser, one going. And part of it is two risers, two going, two risers. So it became naturally a place where kids were sitting down. You learn to, if you have a simple thing, a kitchen with a sink, where should the sink go? Is it be on this side? Is it on that side? Do you want the dirty cups to be seen as soon as you enter the kitchen, or should it be just around the corner? These are simple, tiny little things, and thinking in details. So also another architect actually worked for him. Also Dutch architects are very pristine in detailing. The name is Klaus and Kaale. Although I didn't work too long there, but what I always admired is the fact that buildings always looked clean. Boring. They look boring as well. But clean and crisp. I'm very much into composition and rhythm.
Let's talk a little bit about trends in architecture and how architecture has changed right up till now. So we all know, and this is not just architecture, design in general, but we're talking architecture, where a designer is someone who, they know design regardless of the tools that they have at hand, right? And so when the ink pen and the tracing paper came to be, that was what everybody used. And then we sort of moved on with computer-aided design, so CAD, where you're drawing what you would have drawn with your pencil, with a computer, with the aid of a computer. But at the time, and I'm talking just traditional CAD, it was just you're drawing a line is a line. But now we've moved into building information modeling, so that's like Revit, where when you draw a wall, you're not actually drawing just a line, you're drawing something that's full of data. And once you've drawn that one thing, it holds the quantity surveying data, it holds the structural data, it holds so much information. And now we've moved even further from that, and there's artificial intelligence where there are programs that you can type in and say, give me a floor plan of a 2-bedroom house, it's 9 by 16 meters in the style of Le Corbusier and blah, blah, blah. And I have my thoughts on this, but what do you think is really going to happen? Like, do you think there's going to be a sort of return to the analog? Do you think that it's just going to keep going? And this is, personally, I think that there's a danger in leaning too far on the tools, and that the people who probably will get the bad end of this are students who are coming up now who might not have the chance to learn design through and through by just using. And I don't mean to be that person who's like, use a pencil, use a pen, but I really do think that you need to learn how to design before you rely on the computer to do things for you.
I think there's a few things in this one. I think artificial intelligence, I think it's very scary.
It's scary.
It's very scary. Because the society is going faster and faster. People have to be more and more competitive. universities have to be more and more competitive. So there is a flattening of people don't go into studying things again in depth, and because certainly artificial intelligence doesn't teach you anything. It just gives you, in my view, I mean,
spits out the answer.
If you go artificial intelligence in architecture, I think it makes the architecture extremely shallow. And I'm sure that creator, because I cannot even call that person an architect anymore. It's just somebody that understands the logistics and understands, the logiciel, he understands the program, and he knows how to do a quick drawing and a quick 3D. But that person doesn't understand anything on architecture, doesn't understand anything on light, on rhythm, on proportions. The person is just picks something what he has seen or she has seen somewhere, and you put some ingredients in the system, and AI spits something out for you. I think it has nothing to do with architecture.
Nothing.
Zero. I don't think so. And I'm really worried for places like Nigeria, where even today, without too much artificial intelligence, you already see architects come up in no time with a quick 3D that it looks kind of, let's call it juicy, but it has no content, because clients do not even see that. I think there's also a serious responsibility that lies with the schools. But the schools should be given the ability, the space to teach the students the right thing. So ultimately, it goes even higher than the school, the problem. But I see it as a I don't see it as something good at all. I see it as a problem, as a serious problem. Yeah.
So the thing is, I agree with you, generally speaking, but I know that, and this is just how trends go. If you fight the technology, it will leave you behind.
No, but artificial. I think so if you talk about using computers to make your drawings, that is not a matter of fighting against them.
Exactly, because I feel like artificial intelligence can be utilized to improve your work, but I do not think that it needs to take the place of designing, is what I mean.
Yes.
So now you can say impute your site into let me just say a program, and then say, okay, with the parameters of, say,
how many floors?
Yes.
How many floors, that type of architecture.
No, what I mean is to improve your efficiency. Say we have a project and we need to really pull out numbers quickly, and we impute what Abuja building codes are. So it needs to be this setback, it needs to be this and this and this. But we don't have to sit down and physically calculate what space we need for the building and what space we need for parking and how many parking lots we can get from that. The computer program can do that for us. And I think that is a way to utilize artificial intelligence to increase your efficiency.
It could create the volume within.
Exactly.
From within you can do your design.
Exactly. So it helps you to create it increases your restrictions, helps you to see what your restrictions are, which is what you were talking about, restrictions in design. So that's where I think that it's it could be a good thing, but
I think the flaws there is that it may not understand the essence of architecture.
Of course.
And I think some of the users, well, I don't know. Some of the users they may not even understand it either. They may not have had the correct training. So I think a lot of clients, they are not trained themselves either, unless they are professional clients. But most clients are not professional clients. And if you can wow them with a quick image, and the professional client says, "Wow, you've wowed me. Please, go ahead. This is a bag of money. Go ahead, please." It's dangerous. It's not really great, I would say.
Let's move on from the scary AI.
Okay.
I'd like to ask you about your experience with collaborating with other professionals in the architecture scene, just worldwide, but especially in Nigeria. I've had different experiences, and generally speaking, especially when you're dealing with, say, a very large project, you really need to have a well-oiled team. People have to come together to work to make the project work. But then there's always this sort of stigma against the architect, you think you're all that, and so there's sometimes there's the issue between the architects and the structural engineer. Sometimes I've dealt with, say, mechanical or electrical engineers who are like, you can't tell me where to put the drain, or no, I'm not going to move the air conditioning. But I find that, in my experience, tell me if this is different for yours, it's very much dependent on the personality of the professional, which is a bit sad, because as a professional you should be professional. But and you can't always choose who you work with. Sometimes you're just thrown into a team of people. So what has been your experience with collaborating with other building professionals?
Yeah, I think with other building professionals, if you look at the engineers, that's been in general have always been good. But I think that has to do also a little bit with my training, because my training is apart from the arts, we also learned about the engineering part.
Yeah.
So we comprehend what the engineers are doing. We understand the structural engineers approach. We understand the mechanical and the electrical. Maybe electrical a bit less, but mechanical for sure. I mean, that's all very easy to follow.
Yeah.
And I've always been working hand in hand with both with the structural engineers, the MEP engineers, without too much of a problem. That is my experience. Yeah. But in general, I think if you have another architect on board of your team, I think among architects there's always a kind of respect towards each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, if it is your design, it is your copyright, it is your thing,
Yeah.
you know. Notwithstanding that you should be able to advise if you see things in a different way, you know. So, but there's always people that appreciate the advice, and there's always people that are less appreciative, and that is also with structural engineers, for instance.
Yeah.
You know, in Nigeria we have this 6 meter approach. Columns should be 230 by 230. Beam should be 230 by 600, and the whole of Nigeria is built like
And
that.
that's it.
And that is not very good.
And you fight tooth and nail.
Yeah, and some structural engineers, they find it a challenge. They see it as a positive challenge to do something else like that, and then you get great results. And with other structural engineers, it's a bit of a struggle from day one, and you never get where you want to go. So
Interesting, right? So we're just going to wind down now. I think taking a bit of your time, but I really enjoyed talking with you. I'd just like to ask you a few more questions. If you could give yourself,
great.
No, okay. Let me ask you this first. If you could meet Michel 25 years ago, when he just landed in Nigeria, what advice would you give him now with the benefits of hindsight?
That's an interesting one. Well, this is, I think, very much Nigeria related, obviously, this question. I think Nigeria taught me that, and that goes, I think, beyond architecture, that there's always a solution for a problem, and that is obviously that's always the case. But don't push too much towards solutions. What I learned in Nigeria is that sometimes in the morning you do not know what's going to happen in the evening. You know, today you do not know exactly what's happening tomorrow. So sometimes it's better not to give yourself too much headache trying to resolve some things now, because something else may come up which is totally unexpected, which have resolved your problem. I had it in many instances that all of a sudden the problem was just dissolved, literally dissolved. There's no problem anymore. And I think it's a bit tied to society where things are not really streamlined, a little bit upside down. It's not something bad. I think in the Western world we should also be a little bit more relaxed and try to don't hunt always for solutions. You know, there is certain dimensions you do not always have hold on to, and I think that is really what Nigeria taught me.
Don't stress it too much.
No, it doesn't mean that you have to become totally relaxed and
but in general, like, you can't control everything that happens.
You can't. Obviously, there is. You have to be careful about that, but not become lazy.
Yeah.
You know, and say, well, I will avoid resolving this problem, or somebody else will resolve it. No, that is not what it is. But you just sometimes learn. Okay, I really tried. Okay, I've done it. My thoughts, I put them on paper. They're there. But let's not look at it for 2-3 days. And you look at it after 2-3 days, and you say, wow, that is no longer the case. That is no longer the case. You know, but there's 2 or 3 still there and still very important. And you say, well, that is the solution.
That's the solution.
And then you write your email and resolve.
And what advice would you give to young architects that are, say,
in Nigeria?
Yeah, coming into the space, up and coming, they've graduated, they're working. How would you advise them to go about their careers?
I think if you look at pure professional careers, you know, because sometimes people don't have that choice. And ultimately, everybody needs to make money. You may have a family, you may have kids you have to feed, you have school fees to pay. So a lot of these architects, they never work as architects. They become developer, or I don't know, they can come, but they're not architects. But I think if you have a bit of comfort, you can actually train yourself as an architect. I would say be very patient, work hard. You don't get anything for free in this life. Zero. That is zero. It's absolutely zero. You have to put your hours in anything, whatever you do. But that is in general, not just as an architect. I think as an architect a little bit more, I think, than in many other professions. I think architects in general, they make long hours, long days. But ultimately, you will get there. You fully comprehend what you're doing. You get the full holistic picture of you as an architect, as a little spider within that building environment, and because you're the spider, you're ultimately a very important person within that whole process.
Yeah.
You know, and you can only be that important and carry that importance if you have the experience. So work hard, and even if it's doing a window schedule or doing concept drawings or doing boring details. Detailing is very important. People do not do details enough in Nigeria. But then again, I don't blame the young students or the young architects because the schools are not teaching them that.
Yeah.
You know, so it goes back to the tuition. That certainly needs a serious upgrade.
Yeah. And lastly, what does the future hold for Michel? What are you projecting
As an architect.
As an architect, as a person, what do you? I mean, you spent what you said 3.5 decades in this field.
Yeah.
So, do you? Are you?
It's a big question. This is the biggest question. This is the biggest question over the last 2 hours. This is your biggest question. But it's a very good question, and it is actually it is a question that is. It's very much in my mind. I think once I clocked 60, that question came up immediately. And actually, when I was 59, I thought if I'm 60, I'm going to think about those things, and it exactly happened like that.
Yeah.
Because if you are 60, you're not a young person again. But you're not old either.
Not that old.
Not that old, but you're old. No, but you still depends obviously on the person.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if I look at Michel, I mean Michel still has the energy, and I would love to venture into something new. I would still love to do that at today's age. I still like to do that. You know, happily enough, I have the health that allows me to do that. And life is just too boring just to do
one thing. Yeah.
You know, and even if in general in architecture it is a profession that you are a man or a woman of all sorts. You know, it is still you've almost done it all before.
Yeah.
You know, you've been the architect, you've been the interior designer, you've been the project manager, you've been on the site, you've done the follow-ups, you've done the site meetings, you've done the clients meetings. You know, and I actually wouldn't mind to spread my wings over some of our neighboring countries. But I've been talking a lot about it with my girls, my daughters, how to go about. And so it is still something being discussed. But do not hold me onto this.
Yes, I will.
But I'm open for any good discussion because I don't see stoplights in front of me. I see green lights.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of which road do I take.
Yeah. That's very interesting. Well, thank you so much for sitting down and discussing design with me.
Yeah, nice talking to you.
I really enjoyed that. I think if people want to know more about what you do, there is a website called 3ADB Limited, right?
Correct.
I'm saying this
Correct.
right.
Yeah,
3ADBLimited.com.
Correct.
I will write it on the screen because I don't know if I said it right.
Very good.
But yeah, if you want to know more about what Michel does, you can go to that website and see all the fantastic architecture over the years, and there's contact information there if you are interested in some sort of design or build work. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Appreciate it. Nice interview.
Fun times. Thank you so much.
I'm just thinking, I've been working as an architect for 35 years already.
Really?
Is your camera running?
I believe so.
Okay.
You made me nervous. Now I have to go check.
Next week on Design Discussions, Michel gives us exclusive access into the Butterfly House, a sustainable modular housing prototype designed and built specifically for the African continent. If you click subscribe, you won't miss it.